There is a moment every John Deere and Case IH owner is going to live through eventually, and the men who have lived through it once never forget it. You are sitting in the cab of a combine that cost more than the house your father raised you in. The storm is 40 minutes out, and a red triangle has appeared on the screen telling you that one of the 125 sensors inside your machine has decided that your day is over. The engine still runs. The fuel tank is full, the grain is ready to come off, but you cannot move faster than 3 miles per hour because somewhere in a glass office in Moline or Racine, a piece of software has decided that you do not have permission to harvest your own field today. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you are watching from. That is what they have done to us. That is what the man on the green hat and the man on the red hat, the two companies that fought each other for our loyalty for 70 years, decided to do to us at exactly the same time, with exactly the same trick, while pretending they were still rivals. There is no choice anymore. There is no escape into the other color. They built the same trap, and they walked us into it together. And the worst part is that we paid for the privilege of being locked inside. If you're old enough to remember, you remember the rivalry. You remember the kid down the road whose family ran red. And you remember not speaking to him for a week in second grade because your daddy ran green. You remember the county fair where the green tractors were on one side of the lot and the red ones on the other side, and grown men walked back and forth comparing horsepower numbers like they were debating the Bible. The choice meant something. You were a Deere man or you were a Case man, and the difference followed you to church and to the auction barn and to the grave. Your father picked his side. He passed it down to you. You passed it down to your son. And the men in Moline and the men in Racine watched you do it, and they smiled because they knew something you did not. They knew the rivalry was over. While you and your neighbor were arguing about which combine threshed cleaner, the engineers at John Deere were writing a piece of software they called Service Advisor. And while you and your brother-in-law were arguing about which tractor pulled harder, the engineers at Case 1H were writing the exact same thing, only they called theirs the Electronic Service Tool, spelled EST. Different names, same lock, same key, same dealer holding the key, same $180 an hour to make the dealer plug it in. The two companies you trusted to be enemies turned out to be reading from the same playbook, and the playbook was written by lawyers, and the lawyers wrote it against you. Here is how it works. You buy a tractor, you take it home, you wash it on a Sunday afternoon, you teach your boy how to start it, you hand it down, and one day a sensor faults. A $35 piece of plastic on a wire somewhere deep in the engine bay decides that the world is ending. The tractor will not run, the combine will not thresh, the sprayer will not spray. You can pop the hood. You can see exactly what is wrong. You can rebuild the part with your eyes closed, but you cannot make the machine forget the error code, because the only people on this earth who can tell the computer to forget are sitting in a green dealership in Moline or a red dealership in Racine, and they want $180 an hour and a 40-mile drive and a Tuesday appointment, and your storm is coming in at 4 o'clock on a Sunday. A combine has 125 of those sensors in it. 125. Read that number again. Every one of them is a tiny little judge that gets to decide whether your year is over. There is a farmer in Forest River, North Dakota. His name is Robert Blair. He runs 5 John Deere tractors and 2 John Deere combines on a piece of land that his family has worked since most of us were born. One day, after one too many calls to the dealer, after one too many $180 invoices, after one too many days standing in his field watching the storm come in while a green technician drove up from Grand Forks, Robert Blair did something almost no farmer in America has ever done. He sued. He filed a federal class action in a courtroom in Chicago, and he put his name on the top of it, and he told the judge that the company he had bought his entire life from had stolen something he did not even know was for sale. He told the judge that without the firmware, his tractor was as useless as a tractor without a steering wheel. The judge agreed. The court agreed. The Federal Trade Commission agreed, and 4 years later, in April of this year, John Deere wrote a check for $99 million and signed a settlement that admits, with all the lawyer-careful language you would expect, that what Robert Blair said was true. There is a farmer in Nebraska. His name is Danny Kluthe. He stood up in front of his state legislature in a room full of suits and microphones, and he said this, plain as a man can say anything: when crunch time comes and we break down, chances are we do not have time to wait for a dealership employee to show up and fix it. There is another Nebraska farmer named Kevin Kinney who told a reporter that you can take a Deere tractor to an independent mechanic. You can let him drop in a brand new transmission, and the tractor will not even drive out of the shop until a dealer arrives, plugs a connector into a USB port, and charges you $230 plus $130 an hour to type in a code that authorizes your own part inside your own machine. You own the steel, you own the seats, you own the bank loan that paid for it. But somewhere in the deal, the company that sold it to you wrote a contract that said the brain belongs to them. And the brain is the only part that decides whether the rest of it works. The judge in the case had something to say about all of this, and it is worth hearing in his own words. He wrote that farmers have no alternatives. Because of the system created by Deere, that Deere makes farmers reliant on its own software, and that by licensing that software only to authorized dealers, Deere forces farmers to visit those shops instead of using closer, cheaper options. That is not an angry man at a county fair. That is a United States federal judge sitting in the Northern District of Illinois, writing the word "no alternatives" on the official record. That is the system you are living inside, described by a man in a black robe who has read the contracts. And in case anybody thinks this is a green problem and not a red problem, the same federal court has subpoenaed Case Wine H, has demanded their pricing data and their dealer agreements, and has put them under the same legal microscope. The Case IH dealer charges the same $180 an hour. The EST tool requires the same subscription license. When they finally agreed to sell a customer version to you, it comes crippled. The same way the customer version of Service Advisor comes crippled. Both companies signed memorandums with the American Farm Bureau promising to do better. 3 years later, the Iowa Farmers Union calls those memorandums what they are: a piece of paper without teeth. Now here is the part that should put a knot in your throat. The IH in Case IH stands for International Harvester, the red brand your grandfather worshipped, the brand that built the American farm from Indiana to Idaho, the brand that died in 1985 when it could not pay its bills anymore. Case bought the corpse, kept the letters, and stamped them onto the side of their tractors so that every farmer who had ever loved International Harvester would feel a flicker of recognition every time he walked past a red Magnum at the dealer. And today, that red Magnum is not even owned by an American company anymore. Case IH belongs to CNH Industrial, a holding company that reports to its Italian parent in Turin. The red tractor sitting in your shed answers to a boardroom in Turin, Italy. The green tractor next to it answers to a software server in Moline, Illinois. Neither one of them answers to you. There is a moment somewhere in the middle of all of this that I want you to feel. It is the moment a man in his 60s realizes that the brand his daddy taught him to trust has become a brand that does not trust him back. It is the moment he understands that the green hat or the red hat he has been wearing his whole life is not a badge of brotherhood anymore, just a uniform somebody else picked out for him. It is the moment he looks at the new tractor he just signed papers for, and he looks at the 1979 4440 in the back of the shed, and for the first time in his life he understands which one of those two machines actually belongs to him. The good news is that the men in the green hats and the men in the red hats are starting to figure this out together. The auction prices on pre-emissions iron are climbing every month. A 1978 John Deere 440 with 16,000 hours on the clock sells today for more money than it cost the year you graduated high school. A 1995 Case IH Magnum 7130 mechanical injection, no DEF tank, no software lockouts, fetches a premium that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. Old combines, the ones with mechanical brains and no satellite antennas, are getting hauled out of fence rows and brought back to life by men who have decided that they would rather farm with iron from before the lockout than spend another harvest waiting on a dealer. Colorado was the first state in America to pass a right-to-repair law for farm equipment. Iowa just passed one in the statehouse by 70 votes to 18. Oklahoma's Agricultural Committee passed one 5-1. There is a Republican from Hudson, Iowa, named Derek Wulf, who stood up on the floor of his statehouse and said something every farmer in this country should print out and tape to the wall of his shop. He said that farmers built this country on independence and grit and self-reliance, and that being told they need a password and a corporate blessing to turn a wrench is not just bad policy, it is an insult. He won that vote. The whole room voted with him. And underneath all of it, in barns and machine sheds from Pennsylvania to Oregon, the old men are teaching the young men how to bleed an injector line, and how to time a mechanical pump, and how to fix a tractor without asking a computer for permission. That knowledge almost died. The corporations almost killed it. And now, because of what they did, that knowledge is the most valuable thing on the farm. So when you walk out to the shed tomorrow morning before the sun comes up, take a long look at what is parked in there. The new green one with the touch screen and the cellular antenna and the warranty booklet in the plastic sleeve, that one belongs to a company in Moline. The new red one next to it belongs to a company in Turin, Italy. And the old one in the back, the one your daddy taught you to drive on, the one with the cracked seat and the faded paint and the diesel that has never once refused to fire on a winter morning, that one belongs to you. It always did. And every time you turn the key on that old machine and feel the field start to move under you, you are casting a vote against two corporations who thought you would never figure out what they did. If this hit you somewhere, hit subscribe and tell me one thing. Has your tractor ever locked you out of your own harvest when it mattered most?